Welcome to This Commerce Life. We are an unscripted podcast dedicated to small businesses and entrepreneurs in the retail and consumer packaged goods space in Canada and the United States.
I am Phil Chang, co-host and co-founder.
And I'm Kenny Vanucci, co-host and co-founder of This Commerce Life.
Our love is the journey to retail, and our passion is sharing that with you every week.
Yes.
We talked to Gavin last year, I think.
Yeah, we talked to Gavin.
You got recorded on, right?
Almost a year ago now. Last August, I think.
All right.
Yeah,
they had a lot of guys. Patrick Higgins.
All the old school.
Mike was on. I think
Yep.
Mike. You had Mike with you.
Yep.
Yeah. So you guys are making the rounds.
Well, we're trying to.
we do our best.
We do our best. I mean, we
Yeah.
had talked to Michael about. I think Michael had talked to you about you on our podcast, and you should get Dean on. I said, "Well, just tell him." We don't have Dean's contact. I said, "Do your job, man. Set it up."
Well, he did tell me about it, and I kind of got busy with things and stuff, and
That happens. It's all good.
I wasn't sure whether I would kind of fit into your program, anyways, into your plan of what you guys talk about. So. But
I think
then I had dinner with
yeah.
him, and he was like, we were there for 4 or 5 hours. Closed the restaurant down, and he says, "You gotta talk to these guys." I'm saying, "Okay, I'll talk to them."
No, Dean,
We love it.
I think you totally
We're-
fit. I mean, you've been around a long time. You've seen the industry change over the multitude of years that you've been doing this. So, I think it's what we try to do is. I mean, we have a lot of younger people who listen to, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of startups, a lot of people are trying to do things. We have a lot of retailers that listen. We have a lot of brands that listen. And then we also have a lot of the old timers, because I've been around a long time. So was Phil. So it's that, right? But I think a lot of young people, it's just good for them sometimes to hear a little bit of the history and then see how it relates today, or some of the challenges that you guys had that maybe they don't have. But really and truly, a lot of the issues are still the same. They may change a little bit, but it's still fundamentally the same business to large part. Yes, there's different competitors.
Sadly, a lot of the issues are the same.
Yeah, as much as it changes.
Keep going around and around.
Well, it's funny. It's a circle. Like sometimes, you're thinking, shit, that's brand new. Well, only if you haven't been around 30 years. That's the second time that has come around.
Like good CPG people
Yeah.
on both sides.
Yeah.
Some of the problems have been rebranded. So when you talk to retailers, just call them different names now. The buckets have changed.
Yeah. Well, and some buckets have got bigger, some have got smaller.
No, all of them got bigger. All of them got bigger.
Yeah.
They just have different names. They're rebranded slightly, pitched differently. And then on the vendor side, everything is the same.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, it's been very interesting over the last 47 years of being in all levels of the distribution system. From the growers and the raw material all the way through to, different channels as well, like, the MLM business and practitioner business, the pharmacy, the pharma business. It's really fascinating. And what's interesting to me all the time is everybody thinks that it's greener on the other side. Oh, those guys are making all the money, or those guys don't have any problems.
Yeah.
But unless you walk in their shoes, you don't know. And everybody's fearful of everybody else.
Yeah.
And if we spent less time being fearful and spent more time doing what we're supposed to be doing, we'd be much more successucul.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't argue
And
that.
I think that's one thing that we have been celebrating a lot is, you think this natural food, natural health product industry, they've probably gotten it closer to what we always wanted, right? Because now this new gen that's out there now is they share a lot. They don't care if possibly so the example I've been giving, right, is Penny and I were at CHFA and there were two women founders. We were standing with one, we were celebrating her success. The other one came up and they're not in competing categories, they're adjacent categories. But it was like we weren't there, right? She just went, "Girl, I'm so proud of you. Your work at Costco." And so both of them are in Costco. And so one figured out the Costco thing, shared it with the other one. and the other one got success, right? So in the old days, this would never be a thing. You would never share. You would go, I got that, right? I landed that account. I would never share that kind of thing. If they figure it out, good for them. We'll share some laughs over the bumps and the bruises you got along the way. These two were openly celebrating. Like the one had nothing to gain from sharing it with the other one, but they do it because they realize like this moves everybody forward. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's like I tell that story a lot because I just think that is wickedly cool, right? So,
well, I don't know if Michael shared with you, but the whole Health First that we had created back in the day was the premise of the whole group. The group was about none of us is as smart as all of us. If we get together and share best practices, if we start talking among ourselves. Now, the independent retailers all were fearful of the guy down the street, but we had protected regions or areas based on postal code back in the day, and they felt comfortable enough. And then we started the AGMs, the annual general meetings, where the retailers would come out and they would start sharing, and you would put people together, like-minded people or similar, like some of the ladies, the little old ladies, we'd put them all together in one little group, and they could, share among themselves. The parents of some of the kids that were going to be taking over the stores, we would put them together. We would have a buddy system where a new member was coming in. We'd look at the profile of the store. We'd put them with similar type of store. So supplement stores with supplement stores, food stores with food stores. But the thing is, everyone seems to want to attack each other. And at the end of the day, we can accomplish things by finding the things that bring us together, not focus on the stuff that divides us. And today we see it more than ever. I mean, it blows me away that people are so focused on finding all of the differences, and then they start attacking each other on it.
And the amount of energy you spend and waste.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, exactly.
Right. For what? It goes nowhere. Nobody wins. I told Phil, because I've been involved in the natural health space a little longer, because even in my days at London Drugs, when I was buying, we were probably the first major retailer in the country to go to the extent we did, bringing in things, whether it was in cosmetics or HABA or food or wherever we decide. Like, we really wanted to, because we were a drugstore, and we figured, shit, if you're going to a drugstore, your reason you're in a drugstore typically is you're not feeling good, right? And pharmacy is a good solution, but it can't be your only solution. Like, you should marry that with alternatives within the natural space so that, you get the benefits of both sides. There's some stuff that science has to fix, and there's some stuff that Mother Nature's more than happy doing all by herself and does a better job maybe. But trying to marry those two, right? But, nobody would. I love this industry because everybody wanted to help, not necessarily us. We were always looked at as the demon children because we were mass. But once they got to know you and they know you weren't trying to beat the shit out of the categories, you wanted to grow this. So the more people knew this, the more they'd shop in your stores, because you guys were the experts. We weren't. We just offered the product. But if you wanted to learn, you had to go to you guys.
Kenny, was that if it wouldn't have been for London Drugs, Vita Health never would have existed. I mean, our development and working with you on private label in the early years, and the work that was done there. I don't know if you remember Dean Garrett or
it's absolutely worked for Dean for years.
McCary, or Glenn DeYoung. I mean,
all of them.
It was you guys. The guys at London really allowed us to bring more natural products to the rest of the world, because we couldn't have survived if it wouldn't have been just working on the little mom and pop stores all across the country.
It's too hard.
So I always believed that there was these different classes of trade. They all have something to bring to the party, and if we can, as retailers, when I was working with the retail group, if we can learn from the MLM guys. It's funny because the retailers will often say, those MLM guys, they charge so much money and they're ripping people off. Well, I got news for you. The grocery guys and the pharmacy guys are saying the same thing about you. The problem is you're living in a silo,
a bubble.
And you don't realize that there is, your problems are the same. I had a meeting. I was on the Retail Council of Canada with David Bloom. I don't know if that name.
I remember David from Shoppers.
Right. And so we were on the board together, and I remember having a conversation with him. And at the time, we had just taken over the stores from Booker McConnell out of the UK. And I was running these stores, and I was sitting with him. I was kind of intimidated by him. Okay, here I am with these 34 health food stores, and there's this guy with these pharmacies, like he's the king of the world, this guy. And I started talking to him, and I said, he said to me, "Oh, what kind of stores do you have?" And I told him, and I said, "Well, like, you don't know who we are?" He says, "Sorry, I have no idea who you are." But he says, "That's really interesting. We should do some cross promotion." I said, "What?" I says, "You're stealing my business. You're taking my vitamin." He says, "I have the same problem with those guys at Woco because they're stealing my cosmetic business because I'm building this up and those guys are stealing it away and selling it at lower prices. We should work together." And I was totally blown away by that. I had no idea that, just we have the perception. Perception becomes reality, unfortunately, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But there's so many opportunities. Like that group with the Health First group was never intended to be something to beat over the head of suppliers. It was about working together to become better retailers. If we're better retailers, we can let our distributors be better distributors. We can let our manufacturers be better manufacturers. But for some reason, manufacturers want to be distributors. Distributors want to be manufacturers. Retailers want to be wholesalers. It's like, guys, focus on what you do best. And what I love about the MLM guys is they're very focused. Like Herbalife, for example, they'll take 4 products that do, $1 billion. I mean, they have all the other complementary products, but it's all about focus.
Right.
And I think if the retailers can focus on what they do best, and what they really do is they're not a warehouse. What they are is they have an interaction with the consumer. And I think the key there, the biggest asset they have is not inventory. It's the customers that they serve every day. And, there's things we can learn from the practitioner market. There's things that we can learn from the direct to consumer market, from the e-commerce guys. I mean, we started back, I guess would have been 2000. I can't remember the date, but we started years ago. We had like 300,000 people on a database. And we were building the consumers for the stores. It was funny, guys, because they used to get together at the AGMs and they'd say, "Well, I got this guy from Calgary," and they're in Hamilton. Say, "This guy shopped in my store from Calgary. He signed up for this thing." She said, "I'll trade him. You got one guy there that's, in my region. I'll trade you customers." I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing? But the more you get them together and you start talking, you can find all kinds of synergies. I used to say It's like herding cats, because I'd get, 3 or 4 of the retailers doing one thing, and then 4 of them would disappear. And I'd have to go and grab those guys, bring them back. Meanwhile, 2 have strayed away. Yeah. But it was when you got them together, and if I had 70% of them wanting to do something, we could make it happen. Right. 70% didn't want to do with it, we couldn't do it. Right. But if I had 50-50, I was dead in the water. Yeah. And I was like, sorry, guys, until you commit and talk to each other and convince each other to do this, it ain't going to happen.
They spent a lot of years, though, Dean, that whole industry. I mean, because remember, I watched it from the outside. They spent way too much time in fear and denial. Yeah. Fear of Loblaws in London and the Save-Ons coming in, and then denial that the Londons and the Save-Ons and the Loblaws were coming in. You're thinking, fuck, guys, if you guys had just spent more time just manning the fort, you would have done so much better, because the thing that none of us could offer was the expertise that they could offer. We didn't have it, right? Yeah. And we couldn't offer the breadth of natural health supplements, and probably, again, back to, we just didn't have the people to support it. Like, if you kept it pretty basic, or something that had already crossed, there was, there was enough information in media or mainstream where you could survive without having to go in and say, "Dean, can you explain this to me?" But they spent so much time worrying and resisting.
It's interesting you say that, because it brings back a memory of mine. I don't know if you guys remember, but Vita was purchased by Liner Health Products in the U.S.
I do remember.
Yeah,
I remember all of it.
Yeah.
I lived through all that shit.
When those boys came into town, like, they couldn't get into Canada, their life depended on it. I mean, they were giving away vitamin E to shoppers, and I think they had 4 SKUs or something. So we ended up, they came in and bought Vita Health out,
Yep.
and so that they could get into the market. But they had no clue about, let's say, the natural industry or the distribution business or the retail business. And they didn't want to know any of that. But I can remember going to one of my first meetings, and they told John Holtman and I to stand up, and they said, oh, these guys are going to lead us into the health food business and everything. And I felt pretty darn good. I mean, well, I'm a guy from Winnipeg. What the hell do I know, right? And these guys are patting me on the back. And so they said, we have this idea. We're talking to Walmart, and they want to put a store within a store. And we had already had experience with that with London Health Centers that we had, and Wheat Chief and all of those stores. So that night, I spent the whole night with, I don't know if you knew a guy named Robert Midmer. He was our category captain with Walmart. He was the guy that set up the whole Walmart program for us. And he and I were sharing a room. I spent the whole night in the room working on this plan. And I thought, this is brilliant, because I have all of these little health food stores across Canada, and in these markets where Walmart had bought out the Woco stores and was taking them over. And I said, this is great, guys, because what we'll do is we'll develop this format, because just like you were saying, Kenny, the idea here was Walmart didn't want to have all of the products in the health food store. They wanted the 20%, the 80% of the business, the stuff that was on Oprah at the time.
Right, the best of the best.
Yeah, and exactly. So we were going to said, okay, we'll put that into the store. I'll get the independent health food store in that area to man the store, to run the store for the Walmart guys, to help them to, move business like crazy, because 4% or 5% of the population shopped in a health food store. 80% of them shopped in the mass market. Yep. So this is great. We would just move these customers in. When they came into the store, they'd sell them that product that was, the 80% of the sales. But they would say, hey, what about your health? How are you feeling about this? How do you feel about that? How can we help you? And they'd say, well, yeah, I've got this problem with arthritis. No problem. Come to my store, and I'll I'll show you these other products that I have. And everybody could win on that. But the guy from Liner at the time, he sat at the meeting with us, John and Robert Mimmer, and he said to me, you don't get it. I said, what do you mean I don't get it? He says, we want to take the business away from the health food stores. And I'm like, are you out of your mind? This
no,
is like
you don't get
of the business there. You want to steal, and actually took the sugar packets on the table, threw them on the table. And I said, this is the health food store with one packet. Here's all the packets with health the Walmart guys have. Yeah. If you move some of these lower margin customers over here, and where the high margin customers are, we're going to grow that business. At the same time, the overall business is going to grow with Walmart, because they're going to have access to all the top selling items, and you're going to have people in the store who are going to teach them how to use it. And he couldn't get it. I got up from the table and I told John, I said, that's it. 21 years at Vita, it's over. I can't work with these guys. I'm not going to sacrifice these independent health food stores so that you can, get a feather in your cap with the Walmart guys. Because in the long term, that's not really where Walmart wanted to go anyways. It's a huge store. Like, you've got a lot of different categories in there. We're just a small portion of that. But anyways, I mean, that's water under the bridge now, Kenny.
Well, they blew that one, buddy.
Listen.
Because that didn't last too long, that whole arrangement. Remember? Like, they lost all the private label.
Yeah.
They lost ours.
Yeah.
Like, pretty much because they couldn't supply anything.
Yeah.
And it was a typical thing. We kept saying, you guys, it's a different country, first and foremost. There's not that many of us.
Yeah.
Like, you guys think that remember, our whole population at that time is California. You guys are not understanding this. Yeah. There's 6 or 7 cities in the whole country. That's it.
Yeah.
And a lot of space in between.
Well, David Bloom said to me one time, because we had this discussion about going into the U.S. Shoppers was looking to go into the U.S.
Dean, hang on one second. We should do an intro, because
nobody knows who we're talking to.
Nobody knows who you are,
guys.
But it sounds like I think this next part we should do. But I wanted to just get Penny. Do you want to do a quick intro, and then we'll let you kind of roll with the story, because
Dean, how do you say your last name?
My last name is Yachison.
Yachison. I didn't know if it was a k or a ch.
But I've been called worse things.
I'm sure we all have. We've been around
We
long
all
enough. We've been
have.
called things.
Yes, we
There's
have.
probably things I don't even know what we've been called yet.
Yes. Yeah.
So as you can tell, if you've been listening, and probably trying to figure out who the hell this is, Dean's been in the industry for a long time. So as you can tell, Dean was with Vita Health, and Vita Health used to be a manufacturer supplier of, we'll call them nutraceuticals across the country. So your vitamins and supplements in the old days, they went into OTC. And then I think Vita Health was not part of the Vita Health stores. That was two
Yes.
different entities.
We were originally Mr. Sire, who was the founder of it back in the 1930s, 40s. He started the whole Vita Health stores, and then he needed to get product, and we couldn't get product anywhere.
I didn't know how that
warehouse.
Okay,
and he started doing the warehouse thing, and that was how they kind of got into the warehouse and natural products that we started to bring in.
Okay.
I came into the equation back in the 1970s. So my father was an electrician, and he was working on wiring the new plant that they had built on Dougal Road. And I was there wiring a plug. And Felix Modeman was the president and general manager at the time. And he was telling my father that his guy broke his arm. And he said, we need somebody to unload this truck. So my dad said, well, take him. And I'd never worked for anybody. I was in high school, I guess it would have been high school. And I went along, and my first job with them was to unload a truck. And I had never seen these products before, had no idea what they were. And I got into the back of this truck in the morning, and I started unloading. There was Lily of the Desert. You might remember them.
I do,
as aloe vera company.
The aloe vera stuff.
Around. There was Rachel Perry, which was a skincare company. There was all kinds of different products like Hanes natural food products that was coming out of the West Coast. Celestial Seasonings. There were all of these different types of products, and we didn't have a power jack in those days. I had to do everything. You had to do everything by hand, and this would have been in July, and this was really hot in there. And I started working, and John Holman came in at coffee time. He says, Yachison, you got to take a coffee break. And I said, well, my dad never lets me take coffee breaks. I don't drink coffee, so I'm just going to work. And he said, oh, okay. So he left me, and at lunchtime he came in, and I'm soaking wet by now. I'm just, hand bombing box after box. And he said to me, you got to take lunch. And I said, oh, I'm not done yet. I can't go for lunch until I'm finished. He says, no, you got it. I said, no, I got to get this done. So he said, okay. In the afternoon, he came in, and he said, you got to have some water. Otherwise, you're going to die in here. And I can't be responsible for that. So I ended up, working with them, and it was a fun thing I did through school, and then all through university. I worked in granulating and tableting, and I worked in labeling and packaging. I even worked in the lab, and I got to see the products and experience shipping and receiving and all of the operational issues. And the company grew and grew to the point that I graduated from university, and I started teaching, and my first year teaching, and I decided that I would go to Europe and travel Europe. And when I came back to Winnipeg, they had a position open, or they wanted me to come and work with them as well, to redesign the warehouse, which, Kenny, you would remember the warehouse that we had that was on Bagan. It was a big, I can't remember how many square feet, but it was huge for Vita. And so we started up there, and and we kind of grew from there.
Okay. But I've been to the one, Dean. I went to it, I think, and I'm going to guess, I think I did a tour, because we did Jameson and a few others. We stopped in Winnipeg in probably 2010, 2008. So where would they have been then? And it was already into the liner day, like that whole shit show had already happened. And
that would have been later on. I mean, this is way back would have been the 1980s, I guess. That would win.
Hey, buddy, that's way before my time, eh?
Yeah. And I then became, I went to Europe, I came back, I didn't get a teaching job. So John and Lauren Sire, you might remember him, they said to me, well, why don't you come and be a sales rep for us? And I said, well, I don't know nothing about sales. They said, no problem. Here's a car. You go to Saskatchewan. which at the time, I think they were doing about 100,000 a year out of Saskatchewan. It was really nothing there yet. And I walked into Saskatchewan and I started to meet people. Mr. Brady, I don't know if you knew him. He was with White Cross Drugs, which eventually they ended up selling out to Shoppers.
Right.
And then I was with the Pinder Boys, got to meet them. And then I worked with United Pharmacists, which was really interesting. And I used to travel around all of the stores, and I used to take orders, and then I'd go to the warehouses and I'd count inventory, and then I'd write orders, and I'd go see all the health food stores and all the grocery stores, and Loblaws at the time, which we were just putting in health food sections in Loblaws. And it was a wild time, and the business just went crazy. And we started doing private label for all of these guys. No one had, vitamins. Actually, there wasn't a lot of vitamins prior to that in those stores. So we started putting vitamins in. We started, developing that private label, and it just was like a rocket. It took off. And then the guys said to me, well, we're going to buy these stores from Booker McConnell in England, and we need somebody to run them. And they said, well, why don't you come back because my future wife was in Winnipeg, and I used to travel back and forth from Saskatchewan. They said, why don't you move back to Winnipeg? You can be closer to Josie, and at the same time, you can run these stores. And I said, guys, I don't know nothing about retail. And they said, you didn't know anything about sales either. So just come and run the stores. So we had these 32, I think, stores across Canada. And they were losing, I think, a couple $1 million a year. And we developed, myself and this guy from Regina, who's a finance guy, we developed a 4-year plan. And we had all of these girls that were working in the stores across from Richmond, Ontario, all the way to Red Deer, Alberta, Edmonton, Calgary, Red Deer. And so we were running these stores and we're, going crazy. And within after the second year, we were making money. And now all of a sudden, Lauren called me in the office, said, Yachison, what the hell are you doing? And I said, well, I thought you wanted me. He says, no, I bought these stores as the money, as a tax write-off. I didn't.
The losing money was fine.
Yeah. So we ended up selling the stores to awesome. Vogel. I don't know if that name rings a bell, from Switzerland. Mm-mm. And they came in and they had the GNC stores. They bought the GNC stores.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And so part of the deal
you really screwed that one up, Dean. Like, what were you doing there? You really screwed that up. What would you go making money for? Like, holy crap.
Well, I didn't know. I mean, listen, I'm not that smart. I kind of look at myself, fellas, as like the Forrest Gump of the health and nutrition business. I just spent over the last 47 years wandering around and bumping into all kinds of people and running across things and just being in the right place at the right time, I guess.
That's half the fun of it.
Yeah, but I've had more. I probably learn more from my failures than I do from the successes.
Yeah, I think we all do.
Yeah, because those have been kind of, for me, some of the other things that have kind of came along. Because from the Vita Health days, when I told you I left Vita and said I can't, work for the liner guys, a buddy of mine, or a guy that I knew, talked me into coming out to Saskatoon and working with a company in raw materials, in essential fatty acids. Borage oil was at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, oh, wow, I get to see the raw material guy, because these are the guys making all the money. And I remember they were on the University of Saskatoon campus, and they had one customer, which was the father of the owner, one of the owners of Biooriginal. And I went in and I said, show me the numbers. And they brought out the numbers, and I'm looking at the numbers and I'm saying, you got to be kidding me. Is this it? This is the margin you guys are making? You got it. This is nuts. And I mean, you're at the raw material side. So you're, price per kilo. There's no real added value here.
All tonnage. It's just moving of raw.
I was a real shock, because I really thought it was, because I had done manufacturing, distribution, retail. I'd seen all of that. I'd not seen the raw material side.
Right.
And so I was really blown away by that. But within 7 years, we took that little company from, I think it was around 11 million when I got there, to about, I think it was 98 or 89 million. And it was a heck of a ride because we started riding the omega-3 business.
Right.
You know, that was a thing that at the time I used to sell with Dale Alexander. I don't know if that name rings a bell to you. We used to call him the Cod Father. And I used to drive him around in Winnipeg from store to store and into Peter Warren, a talk show guy.
Yeah.
And he would talk about cod liver oil and the value of cod liver oil. Didn't know anything about EPA, DHA, didn't know nothing about omega-3s. But we were the biggest distributor in Canada for cod liver oil at the time with VitaHealth. And so I just fell into this EFA, essential fatty acid category. And then omega-3s just took off, and I rode that rocket. And I remember Joe Vidal, who was the president at BioOriginal, called me in one day. And he says, you know, we made this category. And I said, whoa, hold everything here. Like, you don't realize we're just riding the wave, okay? We just waited for the right wave. You got on it. You're riding it. You don't own this. This does not belong to you. And we didn't create this. We just were lucky enough to be there at the right time, at the right place.
Right.
And I can remember Rick Kulo, who was the president, also saying to me, we want to have a brand. And I said, what do you mean you want to have a brand? Well, we want to have a brand. Everybody wants to own a brand. Everyone wants to be, you know, this is the ultimate, you know, the mountain. And I said, do you really want to go there? I mean, we could add value to the product by start manufacturing and bottling and doing things for customers and being a solution provider, which was what we did. And it was pretty successful. One of my favorite stories, and I should tell you because I always love telling this story, is I was trying to sell to Herbalife. You know these guys, you've heard of them. And I was trying to sell them really bad. I was a young kid. I was green. I was working for BioOriginal, and I got a number and I called it every single day on my cell phone. It was on my speed dial, and never ever got a call back. And I was at a trade show. No, it was at a conference, I guess it was. And an old buddy of mine, Steve Witherly, who I work with at Liner, was there, and we started chatting. And I said, so what are you doing now, Steve? He says, oh, I'm in charge of R&D for Herbalife. I said, hallelujah, I've been waiting to see you. He says,
where have you been all my life?
Said, well, I've been calling this number. He said, what number? I opened my phone, my flip phone at the time, and I showed him the number, and he started laughing. He says, Yachison, that goes nowhere. We just give that to guys because
that's a go-away number.
Yeah, we don't need that. But he said to me, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll set up a breakfast tomorrow with the guy in charge of procurement. And I said, great. In the morning, I went there. I saw this guy sitting there with his arms crossed. He has no interest in talking to me. He says, Yachison, I have no interest in having a discussion with you. I'm told I have to have breakfast with you, and that's it. So I said, fine. So I sat down and I started talking to him. And I'm trying to make conversation, Phil, right? I'm looking at him and I said, so Arami, that's an interesting name. Are you from like South America? He said, no, I'm from Israel. I said, oh, wow. I said, 25 years ago, I was in Israel. Yeah, like big deal. And I said to him, but I when I was in Israel, I worked on this kibbutz. And he says, well, which one? I said, Mishma Hasharon. He said, what did you do there? And I rattled off all these things. And one of the things I did was I took meals to the seniors. And he said, do you remember anybody? I said, well, there was one gentleman, he did woodworking and he played the organ. And I remember him. And he says, do you remember his name? I said, I don't remember. But you know what? He gave me a little wooden figurine. And I still had it after all of these years in my office. Yeah. So he said to me, and I said, I think his name is on the bottom. He says, did it start with a Z? And I said, no. But I said, I don't know. I'll have to look. I got home. I looked at it. He told me, call him. I called him. I said, the guy's name was Zeep Rosenfeld. He said, Yachison, that was my grandfather. You used to take meals to my grandfather. He told me about this crazy Canadian guy.
That's
who
so
used
funny.
to come and see him. I used to bring the Danish girls with me and stuff to go and meet with this guy. Like he was in his 80s or something. And so you wouldn't believe this, but within, I think, 3 months, I got all the Herbalife business. And the guys in Saskatoon were dancing in the streets. And Ori, to this day, is one of my best friends. And I have, people say, I don't believe the story. I said, no problem. I'll put him on speed dial. You can talk to him.
That's hilarious.
And he came back in my life many, many times to the point where Natural Synergies, I don't know if that name rings a bell to you, but that was the group that I had in Canada was Health First. It
Right.
started out as United Health Merchants. Remember I told you about
Yep.
United Pharmacists?
Yep.
I had told John one afternoon, I said to him, we should create a group like United Health Merchants or United Pharmacists
Right.
for the health food stores. And he said, Yachison, you're crazy. You've been out in the heat too long. And I said, oh, okay. And then I didn't think too much of it until later on when I was working at Vita. We started to put, and the guy said to me, well, we sold the stores. Remember I told you that?
Yeah.
And he said, well, we want you to stay with us. So you're going to be in charge of marketing. And I said, marketing? I don't know nothing about marketing. They said, no problem. You didn't have any problem.
You didn't know anything about anything, so you've all done it.
Well, you can go to York University. I went to York University to take some courses and stuff, and you can develop the marketing program for the company, look after the health food division, and build that thing at the same time. So I started to develop a private label program for the independent health food stores. And then I started to develop a flyer program like the Tree of Life program in the US. Right. And I started to use the wholesale division because at the time, Lawrence Sire, when I was launching a new product, he would say, okay, you can have $1,000. I said, well, what the hell am I going to do with $1,000? He said, well, if you don't want it, I'll take it back. I said, no, but I need, if I want to market.
Just calm down a minute. I'll take that. How much more is there, right?
So what I started to do was I started to use the wholesale division to help me to market the product. So we did a lot of cross promotions. We started to do a flyer program. Mm-hmm. We started to do the private label. We started to bring the retailers together to find out how we can do things better. We started to report on the wholesale division in terms of order fill rates. We introduced Telzon. I don't know if that rings a bell to you. It was a Telzon unit for ordering. Yeah. So we started to implement a lot of these things with the independent health food stores. So I had about 30 stores in the private label program. No, I think about 12 or so stores in the private label program, 30 or 40 stores in the flyer program. And that was the very beginning of the United Health Merchants. That's
which morphs into health. Is that morphs into Health First Network? Into HFN?
That was the beginning. That was the very beginning of it.
So when did Health First Network start then? So give me, what's the year that you finally came together as that group? Because that group I understand. Yeah. I know that group. And I think they must have about 150 stores now, 140 stores.
I think they have about 140 stores.
Something like that, right? Yeah.
I know when I left, we had 100 stores. And that would have been, almost 15, 20 years ago?
Okay.
Yeah, but when we started, actually, it started with the 7 stores in Winnipeg. There was a guy by the name of Bob Headley out of Brandon.
Yeah.
There was Gay Kelly out of Thunder Bay and Morris Scriven out of Red Deer, Alberta. Okay. And it was just those 3 stores plus the 7 stores. And we started to do the first flyers and things together.
And that was, but it wasn't the logic wasn't a buying group. I mean, there was some warehouse because there's still some warehousing now, but it wasn't really a buying group. It was more of I always do it this way. I go to the drug side, sort of what PharmaSave was. Yeah, it was sort of a collective of stores that listen. We can leverage a few things when we're talking to vendors or suppliers. You know what? We have 50 stores that now can participate in a flyer as opposed to 50 one-offs.
Right.
Like it was that sort of mentality.
We had the wholesale division at Vita.
Right.
So we were using that as, a part of the tool to it.
So we could go direct the store, or for better buys, you would put it into the warehouse and then distribute to the stores.
Not generally. Generally, we would have it go directly to the stores.
Still DSD.
We didn't. I mentioned to you earlier, I don't believe that the retailers should be, in the distribution business. They need to be in the retail business and focus on retail.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so we said, well, let the wholesale guys do it, because the wholesale guys have warehouses, like we dealt with different distributors like Christmas Natural Foods and Life Source, I think at the time, and a few of those kind of guys.
Right.
But it we kind of grew it from that premise of working together, learning from each other. And you mentioned PharmaSave. What's really interesting is Jim Boylan. I don't know if that name rings a bell.
Yeah, I do.
But Jim had a health food store in Medicine Hat, I think it was, and he joined our group. And he was really instrumental. He couldn't believe the stuff we were doing for the health food stores. Because he said, he was on the board with the pharmacy, and he was like, I'm paying huge amounts of money and I'm not getting half the services you're giving me in this group that we had created. So he and 4 other stores initiated with the members, because at an AGM, they stood up and they said, because they were paying $100 a month to be part of this group, right? He said, forget that, we're going to pay $200 a month. And I said, whoa, hold it. I don't need 200. I'm okay where I am. But they said, we want more programs. We want you to do more things. And we started to develop some very innovative concepts. And it was actually John Holtman, because I left Vita, if you remember, and I went to Buy Original. And him and George Chow came to me, and they at the Vancouver Trade Show, and they said, Dean, you got to come back, because the group is falling apart. We're splintering. We're at each other's throats. The big stores are after the little stores. The little stores are after the big ones. The regional things are going on. We can't keep this group together. And so I went to Buy Original and said, I'll work part-time for you guys, and I'm going to work part-time for the health food retailers. So Joe Vidal was like, oh, what do you mean? You're going to cut my costs in half, but I'm going to lose all these sales. Well, that 1 year, we increased the sales 20% at Buy Original, and we reduced the cost by 50%. He wanted all the other sales reps to do the same thing. Said, no, it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way, my friend.
But we that first year that I came back, we expanded the group from about 50 stores to 100 stores. And we increased the sales quite substantially. But we developed programs with the vendors which were really interesting. For example, we take the poorest store, let's say for Renewed Life or something like that, and they were doing very poorly. And we take the best store and we would sit them in a room. We had a one-on-one thing we called. So we would have that poor store talking to the best store, and the best store would say, well, why aren't you selling more? And they said, well, I don't know anything about the product. And they said, well, what about the training? And then the guy said, well, I don't know anything about any training. So then they turn to the vendor and say, well, where's the training? And they said, well, he doesn't sell anything, so he doesn't get any training. Well, how do you expect him to grow the business? So we started to do these kinds of activities, and all of a sudden, these weren't things that required discounts, or these were just people working together and interacting with each other. And the best stores at the AGM, we would have the top 10 stores for each category. And we created category captains. And we said to each vendor, this is your category. And I remember Dean Park saying to me afterwards, he said, Yachison, that was the best thing you ever did, because I was always looking over my shoulder and say, I need to do green products and I need to do these because they're successful. But this is your category. Be better in your category.
Right.
And work with the retailers to increase the sales in that category. Don't worry about, like, we had secondary vendors for each one of the you'd have a primary vendor who was going to be for the category. And I learned that from Walmart, and I learned that from you guys in the pharmacy side, because I remember how they would have category captains. Robert Midmer was a category captain, and I learned that. And I said, why don't we apply that to the health food stores? And then we had the health food stores helping the vendors to find good reps. So you would always, as a retailer, that this rep is a good rep, but he's with a shitty company. But here's a good company and they have a bad rep. Well, why doesn't this rep go work for that company? And so we started to work together, training the sales reps as to how to sell to the health food stores. And so there was a lot of these opportunities for cross-pollination.
But why didn't it spread more? Like when I listen to us, I've only been to one AGM with HFN, and it was when Davide, like the latest one, just came in. I think it was his first event, and the concept was pretty interesting because in the health, herding cats is literally what the health industry and pet industry would be. Both those pharmacies not too hard to herd because they're so freaking rigid. That's easy. Like they'll just follow a line, but health food people are really tough to herd. But I don't understand why this wouldn't have turned into a 500 store idea. And that's not a critique on you guys. It's more of a question trying to understand, because I'm thinking you do, like, you can do so much better sometimes when there's more people playing in your sandbox. I get that you maybe have a little less space to play in, but the sandbox typically just grows a little bit too. Like it's a better game. Like why wouldn't people just be trying to, okay, forget you guys, starting their own?
Yeah. Let me tell you something about that, Kenny, because you're onto something here. With the Health First group, one of the things was to get these stores to work together, they couldn't be afraid of each other. So what we had was protected regions.
That's your postal code idea. So
yeah,
I'll give you a radio and
yeah.
clicks.
And then we could tap into their flyers and things like that. And if they wanted a region, no problem. You had to spend more marketing dollars in that region to build up your clientele in that area.
But that was their responsibility.
What's that?
That was their responsibility.
Yeah,
as
that's
part
their
of the collection.
responsibility.
So
that's
maybe
what
I pay $100 because it's not as big a region. Maybe Phil pays $200 because it's
no, they
whatever.
all paid $100 at the time.
Same. Okay.
Yeah, and then what ends up happening is so there was this thing about these protected regions. So that did lock out certain retailers, and some retailers came in because they wanted to have those protected regions.
Okay, makes sense.
So that until they built up confidence that they could, that their competition wasn't the other health food store. Their competition was, the rest of the world out there.
Right.
But what's interesting is after the second year with Health First, I was recruited by a group in the US there was a group called True Value down there. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're hardware guys.
Oh, I knew True Value hardware. Okay.
And so what happened was there was a group of them from Colombia and from South America who, remember I told you about Ori, the guy from Herbalife?
Yeah.
He called me one day and said, Yachison, you need to go to the airport. I said, what the hell for? He said, there's a ticket. In those days, we had tickets.
Yeah, I remember that too.
He says, go to the airport. There's a ticket waiting for you. I go, what the hell?
It's like a spy movie.
Airport. I get a ticket. I fly down to Florida. I get to Florida, and there's 3 guys waiting for me at the airport.
Is like a spy movie.
This sounds like a drug deal.
And I get off the plane.
Don't ask any questions. Get on the plane and go.
One guy's named Moses. The other one's Abraham. The other one was Michael. And they had a distribution business that they were tied in with True Value in the U.S. But they wanted to take the concept I had in Canada, thanks to Ori. Ori told them about what I was doing. They said, we want to take this concept and we want to put it in South America. And I said, well, I told them all about Health First. All the things we're doing. They were very excited. And they said, we want you to come and work for us. We'll pay you double what the Canadians are paying. You come. I said, I don't speak Spanish or Portuguese, and I can't. No problem. We'll do that. And I said, forget it. I said, I'll help you guys, but I'm not doing that. So about, I don't know how long later, maybe 6 months later, I get another call and they say, you got to come to Florida again. I'm like, what the hell? And so I went down to Florida. I get there. They take me. They put me in this 3,000 square foot apartment on the 27th floor overlooking the ocean. And I joined them for dinner. And they say to me, Yachison, how do you like the place? I says, it's nice. So how would you like to have it? I said, what do you mean have it? I could never afford anything. They said, we'll give it to you. We now did our due diligence and we see there's nothing like this in the United States. We want to do it in the U.S. You come and work for us in the U.S. And I didn't want to go. I'm an idiot, okay? And this is not the first time I've done this. Like Lauren Sire told me many years ago, he says, Yachison, you're a line worker. You're not a farmer. I said, but I want to be a farmer. He said, no, you're a line worker. You like to get paid. You like to have the consistency. You're not a risk taker. Yeah. I'll be a risk taker with somebody else's money, but I ain't doing it with mine. I'm not putting my house up. But anyways, getting back to the story, they wanted me to come down there, and my contract was being renewed with Health First. And I remember going in, and Don Smith, who was the chairman at the time, who I had handpicked to take over the board, met with me at Washington. It was at the Washington show. And he said to me, we're not renewing your contract. And I was devastated because this is my baby. I started this with, 3 independent health food stores, and we built this thing to 100 stores. And we were making, the sad part was we were making money. Again, the problem was that it was a nonprofit, and in the first year we made 200,000, and then we refunded that back to the members. And some of the members were not too happy because they were running their business so that they're, from a tax perspective, they were at a certain level, and I bumped them over their
So you
tax
screwed
level.
them all up
You
again.
screwed them up
screwed them
again.
all up
Look
again.
at, you know,
and-
honestly, the nerve of making all this money. It's
And then the
unacceptable,
third
man.
year, we had about 300,000 that we generated extra cash. And Bill Gall, who was in charge of the finance at the time, said, Yachison, you know, we can't be doing this. And I said, well, we could refund it back to the vendors. And Holtman told me that I was nuts, because if you start giving money back to vendors, you'll never get money from them
Yeah, that's
again.
that's a slippery slope.
But at the same time, Roland Gaylor and what was his name from Flora said to me, Yachison, you give us $1 back, we'll give you $1 million to build a newsletter, flyer, a magazine. They said,
Right.
we'll give you $1 million to build a magazine. I'm like, what? So, but anyway, so what ended up happening is they didn't renew my contract. I walked out the door to where we had the meeting at the suite, and I come out in the hallway, and there are these three guys that were from Florida. They stuck their hand out and said, "This is the best day of our lives. You come and work with us." So within 2 years,
the same three guys just
Well,
had
they knew he wasn't going to get the other thing.
So
They're
that
ready.
you
Let's
knew.
go.
So
Wow.
I don't know what. No one ever told me what happened.
Oh, Dean, do the math. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. But what ended up happening is, what's really exciting was, I then started working with this group called Natural Synergies, and we started to bring together independent health food stores in the U.S.
Yeah.
So Kenny, your thought on this is right. We then ended up, within 2 years, we went from 0 to 400 stores, and we had over $1 billion in retail sales. It was absolutely
That's a nice size,
insane.
though. That's big.
Yeah, it was huge, to the point where I said, guys, there's no point in me bringing more stores in, because another buddy of mine called me and said, can you come to Norway? I got this little company. I thought maybe you could help me. And he was a guy that came when I was working at BioOriginal. He was selling omega-3 fish oils, and he was the first guy we signed up with, and I took him on the road. And within, I think, probably about 2 weeks, we sold out his entire production for the year. So he wanted me to come and work with him, and he and his partner offered me shares in this company. Again, I'm a line worker. I'm not a farmer. I said, no, I can't do that. I'm going to stay with BioOriginal. Within a year, he sold out 2 years worth of production. They sold the company for $4 million. He called me and apologized. I said, why are you apologizing? Because I'm an idiot. What are you going to do? But anyways, I went to Norway, and I started working with a company there, which is a small company, had one customer. They were doing about maybe $1 million. And within 3 years, we took that with 3 acquisitions. I got introduced into the pharma business in a big way, and we expanded that business. They became the second largest soft gel producer in Europe. So it was a hell of a ride there. So for me, the enjoyable part, like I said to you, Forrest Gump, I'm wandering through the wilderness here, bumping into people, doing things, and just riding these rockets as I'm kind of going along. But what's interesting for me is then I came back, and because my wife and family didn't want to move to Europe, and the guys from BASF hooked up with me, and they had a little company. They bought a company that was making omega-3s, and they said, would you help us with that? So I went to work there, and within the 3 years, we went from being just one customer to being the second largest omega-3 producer in the world. And it was crazy. We bought Pronova, which was the large Lavazza. I don't know if that means anything to you guys, but that was the number 1 omega-3 pharmaceutical with, what was it called? I can't remember now. But so it was a hell of a ride there as well. I mean, but I learned the big guys don't have all the answers, fellas. I learned that very quickly. They made some ugly mistakes.
They have more fancy words more than anything else.
Yeah.
Probably a little
more
deeper
fancy words, nicer graphs. things like that. But they don't
maybe
always
deeper
have the answer.
pockets, but not necessarily the
Yeah.
ability to do it.
Yeah.
So, Dean, because we're going to run out of time,
Sure.
so what are you doing today? Like, if people want to tap, like, or I'm assuming you're a very easy person to talk to. So I'm assuming that people wanted to reach out or chit chat or learn.
If you want to work with
I'm
Dean,
sure
you
you'd be
need to
there.
buy him a place in Florida. That's what I heard.
I heard
That's what I heard.
3,000 square
That's what I
feet,
heard.
27th floor.
Yeah.
Nice place in Florida.
Interesting
Water
you say
view.
that, Kenny, because another friend of mine in Finland has contacted me, and I'm right now doing some mentoring for his salespeople,
Awesome.
and I'm helping him to try and develop his business for North America. So it's
Awesome.
another one of those kind of things. I'm technically retired. I retired in
That's okay.
2019.
Sure, whatever. That's just words. that means shit. Whatever.
You don't.
And,
Sure.
I've known you.
We've
for
known you 50
61
minutes. Like, whatever.
And there's no restful bones in there anywhere. I can see it as
That's horseshit.
So I'm doing some work with him right now, and I'm trying to do some training with the girls.
Yeah.
Introducing them to sales, how to sell to the buyers, how to work with companies, those kinds of things. And I know he would like me to do some other stuff on raw materials as well, that he's got some Arctic berries and different things along those lines. So I kind of do that, but I'm really just kind of put people in touch with other people, because I do know a lot of people in the industry over the years.
Yeah.
And so, people will call me. At a buddy of mine that called me up and said, where do I get the Concordix? Because a number of years ago, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Concordix, but it's a cross between a gummy and a soft gel. Okay. So it has the payload of a soft gel, but in a gummy format. Okay. It's a very interesting technology that I brought over with me. And we actually launched it with a number of companies. But the thing I always say to people when they're starting business and stuff is, you like to dream big, but be careful what you wish for. Because I've been in so many times now, even with BASF, where we go out and we sell all of this and then they can't supply.
Right.
And that's a very painful experience to be in. Some people say, oh, what a great problem to have.
No, if you're in sales, you know that is the worst thing to happen.
Yeah, it is. It's
the worst thing. Selling out is fine. Selling out and I can't get more is catastrophic.
Yeah, it's only great for like the first moment. You're like, yay! Oh, crap.
And then and then it sucks.
Screwed, right? Now we're so screwed. Like,
But that brings me to one of the things that I'm a big believer in, because I did take from 2019 through the pandemic to kind of be a spectator rather than being a participant.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of come to the realization that the world is no longer about the macro world. No. Thinking about going out, getting everybody and going after everyone. It really is a micro game now. It's about one consumer at a time, developing relationships, working with those consumers, providing solutions, finding ways to help them, and then letting those, especially with the internet. I always love those guys in the multi-level marketing and the direct selling association. It's like, if JC can start off with 12 guys and after all of this time have the Roman Catholic Church, man, with the internet and every the capabilities we have today, guys, you don't need to go out and get everybody. What you need to do is identify, stay close to the consumer, become partners with that consumer, interact with that consumer, let them be your R&D department, let them be your sales force, and stay close to it. Because when you really think about it, both of you guys have been in this business a long time. Think about how archaic our distribution system is. When you think about it, as a raw material supplier, I'm building raw material. And I'm like, well, what's the forecast? I have no idea. This guy, tell me how much the distributor that you need. And then I sell it to him. He takes it into a warehouse. He then goes out and he goes to the manufacturers and he tries and sells them.
Right.
Okay, they bring stuff in, they manufacture it. Then they got to sell it to a distributor, who then the distributor's got to sell it to a retailer or to a direct-to-consumer person. And then on the hope that maybe somebody's going to walk and buy it.
Yeah.
And really, when you think about it, Whereas being direct to the consumer,
Yep.
like I used to like Walmart when we first started doing business at Vita, because they used to give us daily reports. They could tell you what bottle
By
came
hour.
off the shelf.
Yeah.
and
At what time?
Yeah.
Yeah,
By
exactly.
What
hour,
store?
I
I
love
know
that.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
And they
but
can
that's
tell you, and they can tell you like what sells with that item, right? Which is
Yep.
amazing. You think, holy crap! I used
And
to get
where?
thrown out of stores
Yeah.
trying to figure that stuff out, right? And then
And
Walmart
I-
just go, "I'll run your report. It's all good," right? Like,
I can remember in the old
Amazing.
days, we had with Felix Modeman, who was a computer guy. He had a computer system that would blow everybody out of the water. I used to be able to do detailed reports on wholesale of every single SKU, and for each region, how many stores bought it, how much was sold, and then I could bring that together into focus. And I'd go to the U.S. shows, and I had two guys, Darren Wright and Ian Batt, that would go with me. We were pack mules. We had, remember those computer
Yep.
printouts that we'd have a whole stock, and we'd give these reports to the vendors and say, this is what we're doing. We need to put more energy in this market, less energy there. We need to do more here to increase distribution, get more stores. Over here, we need to do more loading. We could come up with plans for those. And guys like Jeffrey Light from Yachison Natural Cosmetics, I still see him every once in a while when I saw him at the show last. And he said, nobody in the U.S. gave that information to United Natural Foods, never, Tree of Life, never, none of those
Which
guys.
is too bad, because how else do you grow this game if you don't share some stuff?
Yeah, you gotta pass on the information. You gotta work
Exactly.
together on that.
So
But-
listen, young man, we're going to run out
Sorry.
of time because we have another podcast to record.
No problem.
You were a treat to talk to. Your
Yeah.
energy is ridiculous.
yeah,
Are you going to be at CHFA in Toronto?
Uh,
Or are you doing any of the shows? Or
he's going to be at his condo
not
in
really.
Florida.
I
That's where he's going to be.
for me, it's not. For me, it's more about identifying specific people that I want to meet and then meeting with them.
because I would say if you're there, we would love to catch up there. If
Yep.
you're down in the coast, if I have to tolerate Theodore for a couple hours, I'll do it. It's a
We
sacrifice I'm
don't
going to
want
make.
Theodore and I in a room together.
I know the thought of it is kind of making me a little worried, but if I have
Yeah.
to take the bullet, I'll take the bullet.
Yeah.
But if you are going to be at the coast, or if you're going to be in Toronto, let us know.
Yeah.
Love to catch up. If people wanted to reach out to you, whether to chat or pick your brain or just to see what you're doing, how would they do? Best way to do that?
Well, you could use my email, which is gdyachison, YACHISON @gmail.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Dean, that was awesome.
Thanks,
Thank
Dean.
you.
And
Thank you.
anytime you guys want to talk or whatever, I'm always around. So I love
No,
to
that's
talk to
wonderful.
people.
Yeah.
No, it's you
I would
gotta-
love. I'll
Yeah.
send you anytime I'm out there. I'll ping, because maybe I would
Yeah.
love to grab a dinner with you or something.
Yeah.
I'll take you to the
That would
best
be-
Italian meal you've ever had. My wife's Italian. She makes you'll love it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you
Sounds
so
good, buddy
much.
boy.
Thanks,
Okay,
Dean.
thanks a lot,
Dean,
guys.
thank you very much. I really appreciate
Thank
you
you.
coming on. Take care.
Take
Have
care.
a nice
Okay,
afternoon.
take care. Bye, Dean. He is.
Oh, you would have gone for 4 hours.
He
That's
is
awesome.
amazing,
Oh
and
my God,
I
the energy.
really love that. I didn't say very much because it was just nice to
You
track
don't have
him and
to.
listen
It's
to
just-
him,
yeah, I just
and the
love it.
energy and the.
No,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's
that
pretty
was
cool. Okay, listen, young man.
Okay,
We got to go right to
That's
the
it.
thank yous for listening, everybody, but we got to
Thank you.
record another one.
bye, guys.
Ciao, ciao.